If you're in the futures market, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill is heavily connected to the Kansas City Chiefs. I am sure it would be Tyreek's first place if he could pick to go back to. At least I would think it would be. And the Chiefs have a need, and the Chiefs are interested, and they're not worried about any of his other question marks.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
51-0, Donnie.
Yeah.
Those numbers don't lie. Georgia, every time they rush for over 200 yards, that's dating back from 2017 against FCS and FBS opponents. They don't lose. The 2 years that they won back-to-back national championships, year one, they rushed for over 208 times. Year two, when they beat TCU, that year they rushed for over 206 times.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Look at the weather, try to look for some anytime touchdowns or maybe some props that you really feel confident about. But it's always the time for urgency, especially for a team like the New York Giants. I think that defense is something that can give Giants fans hope. And then if you get Dart under center, it's hope. And then if you can get Scatterboo out there and the whole building's going boo, it's hope. And as we know, hope works.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid. It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
Will Disney have to choose between Jimmy Kimmel or the NFL? Plus, former quarterback Nick Foles tells us if he's more impressed by the Eagles or the Colts this season. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, and thanks so much for joining us each and every weekday as we're chatting the biggest stories in the business and culture of sports. We also have the GOAT of the Professional Bull Riders League 2025 champion, Jose Vitor LeMay, on later. But first, let's dive right into the shoot-around.
Yeah, let's start in the WNBA, Renee, where history was made in Vegas as Aces star A'ja Wilson became the very first player in league history to win 4 MVP awards. She beat out Nafisa Collier, who came in second in the voting. Now, Wilson will receive a $15,000 bonus. That's close to 8% of her $200,000 salary. And if she does become an unrestricted free agent after this season, many, Renee, are speculating she could become the first WNBA player to sign $1 million contract.
And that's the key. This moment has transcended beyond even A'ja Wilson. And even Kelsey Mitchell and the Fever defeating them in Game 1 of the second round Sunday could not overshadow this. From Miami Heat and her boyfriend Bam Adebayo and Kathy Engelbert, commissioner, surprising her with the trophy at practice, to her emotional response saying it's about the team, it's about the adversity, the criticism they've overcome, to even her receiving 51 of 72 first place votes. Second time ever a WNBA players won back-to-back. First time ever a players won 4 MVPs in their career, and the last time was over 15 years ago. So to your point, with $200,000 as a salary, she's like the top 19 in the league. She's absolutely, as an unrestricted free agent this offseason, gonna earn more. Question is, will it finally move us to that $1 million mark that the W's been looking for in terms of salary?
And I think that most of us are most surprised at, given how great Nafisa Collier was all season long and the records that she put up. I think a lot of people were surprised the vote was not as close or closer than what it ended up being. All right, let's stay in the WNBA. After just days after being eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, the Seattle Storm fired head coach Noelle Quinn, who had been with the team since 2021, and she was the second longest tenured coach in the league. Quinn led the Storm to the inaugural Commissioner's Cup and 4 playoff appearances in 5 seasons. Seattle now joins the expansion teams in Portland and Toronto with open head coaching vacancies here, Renee.
Well, the key, as you mentioned, was second longest tenured, because last offseason, about half the league's coaches were let go following the conclusion of the season. And so for Noelle Quinn, her contract not renewed, but also the entire coaching staff was let go. Keep in mind, though, the Seattle Storm have been a team that's been under investigation because multiple players have come out claiming that they received harassment, they were talked to and mistreated, toxic environment, that the Seattle Storm has their coaching staff has been at the core of those accusations, including Drew Lloyd, which is why she requested a trade out of Seattle. So in addition to the fact on the court, they've been a team that hasn't been able to advance past the second round of the playoffs during her tenure, even with players like Breanna Stewart and Jewel Lloyd and Nneka Ogwumike, the list goes on and on. But off the court, they've had a lot of issues, which to me is why it made sense for them to move on from her and the staff.
All right, well, another costly officiating error happened in college football over the weekend as the SEC says the crew failed to identify a hideout tactic that was used by number 11 ranked Oklahoma in their win over Auburn. The SEC said the Sooners should have been assessed an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that would have wiped out a touchdown that ended up deciding the game. Now, this is now the second high-profile officiating error in the opening month of the season. This after the Big 12 earlier reprimanded one of their officiating crews for failing to identify a rules violation in Missouri's win over Kansas. And I think the fact that the game was decided by just 7 points makes this a really costly error here.
Yeah, and it's also reminded the NFL is not the only place that's under scrutiny for missed calls, because it's happening in college football as well. And every week it feels like there's a different crew that's under investigation. As you mentioned, for Isaiah Satania, the wide receiver appeared to be subbing out of the game, actually stayed on the field, caught the touchdown pass. It's something that for both sides, we're hearing mixed reviews. Auburn saying that coaches have been told you cannot do this. Right. Oklahoma is defending it. And of course, they're all under review in terms of what the officials did not call. So as you mentioned, it's been multiple things, including even dating back to longtime ACC referee Gary Patterson, who terminated his contract after September 13th game between Syracuse and UConn. So there's a lot of pressure right now on officials. Listen, officials have a bad rep.
Always.
Nobody likes officials.
Yes.
Someone's always disagreeing, but there's even more pressure now, which makes me wonder, is this more micromanaging or finally bringing these missed calls to light?
Well, all eyes are on Disney as Bloomberg says ABC's owner this week will meet with the embattled host Jimmy Kimmel and local TV broadcasters Nexstar and Sinclair, all to decide if the late-night host will return to the airwaves. Yet another wrinkle, though, on all this for Disney, as the regulatory agency, the FCC, needs to approve Disney's planned acquisition of NFL media, and that includes NFL Network and Red Zone. So will Disney have to make a choice between Kimmel and the NFL? Well, let's dive into this in today's main event. And let's bring in Mike McCarthy, front office sports reporter and, of course, author of the Tuned In newsletter. So, Mike, why might Disney need to choose between Jimmy Kimmel and the NFL here?
Well, it's a very, very tricky situation for Disney. They've just signed one of the biggest media deals of all time, basically selling 10% of ESPN to the NFL in exchange for NFL Network and Red Zone. Now, do they want the Trump administration, which will have to weigh in on this deal at some point, seek to throw a wrench into the works? As we all know, Trump is not the biggest fans of NFL owners. They turned down his bid for the Buffalo Bills back in 2014, and Stephen A. Smith himself said it Tuned In that caused the president to launch his first presidential run. So there's a lot of things going on here for Disney. And I've also got two other words for you guys. Super Bowl. ESPN is getting its first two Super Bowls, which will be simulcast on ABC in 2027 and 2030. Do they want to jeopardize them? There's a lot going on.
So it seems like there's a triangle of situations here. You've got ABC, we've got the NFL, and then we've got President Trump. And President Trump has actually come out himself and said all they do is hit Trump. They're licensed. They're not allowed to do that. They're an arm of the Democrat Party, and was calling out and even threatening broadcast licenses for ABC and other networks that criticize him. Which of these three sides will bend first, and how do they seem to play off of each other? Because it feels like we're just kind of waiting. It's like a holdout here of who's going to bend first.
It's a crazy situation. I mean, if I'm Bob Iger, this is really a no-win situation, right? Because if he caves to Trump, you've already got this movement in Hollywood led by Howard Stern and others who are saying that, he's bowing to censorship and political intimidation. But, if he goes the other way, he's going to get, creamed that way. But, that's why Bob Iger makes the big money, and that's why they named this building after him in downtown Manhattan. If anybody can figure out a way out of this mess, it's Bob Iger.
And obviously, this is a fluid situation, and Disney, as I mentioned at the top, is planning to meet not just with Kimmel, but also with the local TV stations Nexstar and Sinclair this week to sort of figure out what plan moves forward here. Mike, let's just say theoretically or hypothetically, Kimmel's gone. Is there a short list of names that maybe replace him, and could somebody like Stephen A. Smith be part of that conversation?
Well, Stephen A. Smith is the most fascinating name. Obviously, he's inside the Disney family. Obviously, they love him. He's already guest hosted for Jimmy Kimmel on his show, and by all accounts did very well. He's very funny when he chooses to be. Problem with Stephen A. Smith right now is he's got so much on his plate between First Take and this new Monday Night Football gig, which he's starting tonight, by the way, and the Sirius XM deal. You know what I mean? Would he even have the time or the ability to do this? The other thing, too, is, late night, you could argue, is a dying genre. Does Stephen A. Smith want to go into a dying genre, or does he want to stay in sports, you know what I mean, which is thriving, which is literally driving the entertainment train? So I think Stephen A. Smith is a fascinating possible replacement, but he's a long shot.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, you're right. I think the NFL is just too expensive for ESPN, especially given the fact that they have their big Super Bowl coming up in a few years to sort of risk that with this situation with Jimmy Kimmel here. Mike McCarthy, thank you so very much. And of course, you could read more about Mike's scoops in the media world by signing up for the Tuned In newsletter over at frontofficesports.com. All right, coming up next, everyone, both the Eagles and the Colts are 3-0. Which team does former quarterback Nick Foles think is more impressive? We'll ask him next.
Aaron Rodgers, 2-year stint with the Jets that he'll never want to remember when he goes into the Hall of Fame. He'll just say, please don't mention that. Now he's with Pittsburgh, and he had his best game since Green Bay. Threw 5 touchdowns. Is it 5, right? Am I right about that, Sam? I don't want to screw this up, too. 4 touchdown passes. Yeah, I've screwed up again. 4 touchdown passes against the New York Jets. Buy or sell, Aaron Rodgers will finish the season as a QB1 in a 12-team league, top 12 fantasy quarterback. Buy or sell.
The cop out here is he stays healthy at Jets, right? He'll do it. They're not asking a lot. Top 12. Purdy's already not going to be top 12, right? He's already going to miss this week, probably another week, maybe as much as 5. They've said. So you knock him out there. There'll be other quarterbacks that get hurt, so you knock them out. I don't think he'd ever get top 5, top 6, top 8. But the 9 to 12, I hate to say it, he wasn't bad last year with the Jets. Right? They didn't win games, but he wasn't bad. He had it when he played. He was a good, solid quarterback. He can still sling it. He still can. I'm the first to admit those 4 touchdowns. It wasn't like he had a monster game. A couple of his interceptions were dropped. That should have been picked off there. It seems like he did complete work for touchdowns. A couple of breakdowns by the Jets as well. So I don't see him really as going to win a league for you. But I'm going to buy this if he stays healthy. Hell, just give me 15 games, and I think he can be top 12. So I'll buy this.
I'm going to sell it. Yeah. I mean, games against the Browns and games against the Ravens. And look, I don't know if the Jets defense is as bad as they've showed. If it is, then this may be his best game of the season. So, yeah, I'm going to sell. I think he's on the outside of this looking in.
Fantasy Sports Today. Fridays starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. Only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington and Baker Machado. Well, Renee, I know you and Eagles Nation recovering from that wild game over the weekend where the Eagles came back to hold on against the LA Rams to stay undefeated early this season. Plus, the biggest surprise so far this year might be Daniel Jones and the Indianapolis Colts. So to get some insight, let's talk to somebody who might know both of these teams pretty well. Let's bring in former Super Bowl MVP and 2017 champion Nick Foles. Nick, thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Thank you all for having me.
So, whose 3-0 start are you most impressed by? The Eagles or the Indianapolis Colts here?
Oh, for sure the Indianapolis Colts. I think just everything they've gone through the last several years, constant quarterback carousel, really since Andrew retired. Andrew's a good friend, and I know that was tough for him, but just they've been trying to figure it out. They went with a lot of old veterans. I was there with Matt Ryan. That was my last year in the NFL. And they've just been trying to figure it out. And I think Daniel Jones is doing a good job of going in there and running the offense like Shane Steichen wants it ran. Because Shane's a great play caller, and they have great players. And then Anthony Richardson gets an opportunity to continue to learn and see different things. And who knows what will happen there. But you have a great QB room of guys that can play, so that's awesome. But for them to start 3-0 and not punt through the first 2 games and how they've been doing is pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, and one of the other undefeated teams, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the defense, especially Jordan Davis, getting a lot of love right now for that miraculous play. But, of course, on the offensive end, you talked about the QB room. Someone like Jalen Hurts, I'm curious your thoughts because there's been such a wide range of love and support like we have for Jalen Hurts, but many that still scrutinize and question his true abilities as a quarterback, especially because of the talents of Saquon Barkley. As someone that has been a part of that QB room, what are your thoughts on where Jalen Hurts stands in line of some of the best quarterbacks the Eagles have seen?
Oh, he's one of the best quarterbacks the Eagles have ever seen. And his game's just different. That's what people have to realize. I started a podcast with my brother-in-law called The Season where we talk about football. And I'm a huge Jalen Hurts fan. Obviously what he's done, his success. I mean, he's a winner. That's the biggest thing. You want a winner. He might not be throwing it like other quarterbacks do, but they aren't running it and doing what he's doing as a whole. And I think his entire quarterback play of what he brings to the Eagles, his leadership, how he conducts his offense, how not only can he can throw it, but run it, that opens it up for Saquon. And it's just one of those things. They have a new coordinator as well with Coach Patullo. This is his first time really calling plays for him. And it takes time. It takes that rhythm. The second half of the game yesterday, I think all of us Eagles fans, ex-players were really excited to see the passing game get going. You got to have the passing game, and they got to figure that out. They're trying to mix all these different worlds with the running game and the passing game and a new OC that was hired within. So that takes a little time. I know they want to get that figured out, but Jalen's a winner. He's won on every level, and he continues to win. I mean, they're 3-0. They don't surprise me being 3-0. That's why I chose the Colts. The Colts surprises everyone. I know that's the standard that's been set for Philly for a while now.
One of the other things the Eagles have going for them is the tush push, which clearly nobody can stop. Is this only because of Jalen Hurts, or would the tush push have worked when you were with the Eagles?
It definitely would have worked with Carson and I when we were with the Eagles for sure. As well, I mean, Jalen Hurts, though, is so good at doing it. I mean, he's a little bit smaller than us, but he squats way more than we ever did. He's a powerful runner, fierce runner. I think the key, though, to the tush push, and he would tell you this as well, is the O-line. The O-line does a great job of getting leverage early. Their coach, Coach Stoutland, has always been a great quarterback sneak coach, but he's also a great O-line coach. So those guys are so detail-oriented. They've been an amazing O-line for the last decade. Anyone who comes in there, they acclimate to what Coach Stoutland's teaching and the veterans that have been there. So the offense as a whole is what makes it so great. Jalen's definitely better at the QB sneak than I was, but we would have done it well as well. But it's just one of those things where the NFL is talking about, everyone's like outlawing it, don't want to run it, but it's just because the Eagles are so good at it. I know they have to officiate it right, and if there's false starts, they got to call them, but you can't get rid of a play just because a team can't be stopped on it. And I think it also creates a fun energy throughout the league. Anytime it's like 4th and 1 or 3rd and 1, you know what's coming. It's like, who's going to be the first one to stop it? You can't stop Jalen Hurts running the tush push with that O-line and the guys behind them.
I could not agree with you more. Don't ban the tush push. But I know this week we saw 5 backup quarterbacks start across the NFL coming into Monday's game. And so the backup quarterback position, a massive one. We know St. Nick, you yourself, were the reason why the Eagles were a big part why the Eagles were able to win that Super Bowl back years ago behind the Philly and all the big moments. When you look at the Cincinnati Bengals without Joe Burrow, or Carson Wentz even, former teammate stepping in with the Minnesota Vikings, how do you assess the need for teams to truly lock in a game-ready backup quarterback that's able to step in when needed?
I mean, it's one of the more important positions. You definitely want a quarterback that can step in, that honestly can run a similar version of the offense that you're running with your starters. So you're not going to be identical, but you want to have that ability to where it's not a drastic change. So, like I talked about last week with the Minnesota, my favorite backup quarterback going into the game was Carson Wentz. I knew right away Carson was going to have a solid game, even though he just got there. He could run the offense. J.J. McCarthy's running. Sam Darnold ran it well last year. Carson can run it just as well. So that was a huge get for Minnesota because that can save a season. When you get a backup quarterback, you want to think like, can they win 2 to 4 games if our starter gets injured? That's your thought process. Can they win those games that just keep us in that playoff race? Or, hey, the starter goes down, we don't even have a chance. We're going to need a lot of luck. We're going to need a lot of turnovers. So I think the backup quarterback position is a huge position in the NFL. And not only that, those are the guys that are running your scout team. Those are the guys that are giving your defense looks. So you want a guy that's really good in practice as well to give your defense accurate looks. So when they go play on Sunday or whatever day they're playing, man, in practice, they were seeing a pretty good quarterback as well. So it's sort of a twofold thing of why to have a good backup quarterback.
Nick, with the last little bit of time that we got left with you, I want to talk about your partnership that you got with IBM and a little bit more on fantasy football. Do you look at fantasy football differently now that you're no longer in the league?
I'm definitely becoming more interested in it. I'm definitely looking more at like spreads and everything right now. But fantasy football, I have a lot of friends that ask me questions about fantasy football. So this is fascinating because AI is a big thing right now. We hear a lot about it. So the way I summarize it where people can understand is with IBM's Watson X, it's their AI. It's basically like you have your own scouting department at your fingertips through that. So you're going to get all this information, all these algorithms. It's going to crunch all the numbers, give you all the easy data right in front of you. You still have to make a decision. So, you know, Howie Roseman, the GM for the Eagles, he has this entire scouting department that gives him all this information to where he can go get trades or draft people or whatever it may be. He still has to make the decision. Well, now with Watson XAI from IBM, you have that ability at the palm of your hand with all that information, but you still have to make the decision.
Great to have Super Bowl MVP and champion Nick Foles joining us. Nick, thank you so very much for joining us here on Front Office Sports today.
Thank y'all for having me on.
And we have a lot more show coming up right after this quick break.
They have Boise State, they have Arkansas, they have USC. There's no shot in Purdue. Those are the only big games that they have the rest of the way. They're not getting back into the college football playoff. They're not, Donnie. I don't care if they've won 10 straight.
Remember when they lost to NIU? No way, no care. What happens the rest of the season? They can't get in. Who was in the college football championship last
But they
year?
had marquee wins at some point
I don't
last
care. They lost to NIU.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
I needed a mental break when the season was over. Like, because it's a lot. It's a lot. You get tired of training. But, man, I never get tired of playing golf. I love it. I mean, every course is different. Every day is different. And like, some days you're like, oh, I got this. I got it. Then you go out there and shoot a 95 the next day. I'm like, damn.
The Smiley Show. Only on SportsGrid.
NFL season with about 750,000 downloads. Really interesting when you look at the third and the fourth spot. You have Bet365 and Fanatics, which were, again, that first week, they were the only sports books that grew. The good news for the other sports books in terms of downloads this week is even when you take out Fanatics and Bet365, app downloads still grew about 20% across the board overall.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left on it for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado in New York, and some have called it one of the greatest comebacks in sports history as Jose Vitor LeMay came back for being ranked number 31 in the world, all the way to win the Professional Bull Riders 2025 World Final. So joining us now in studio is Jose Vitor LeMay. Jose, good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. I have heard some say Mr. LME is the GOAT. Do you agree with that? Do you think you're one of the greatest riders of all time, given the fact that we have the team championship right here in front of us?
Man, I'm so glad to be in here today with you. And man, it's something that it's really nice to be called, but I think I still on the way for that. There's a lot, that I need to do.
Okay. So yes, okay, we'll give you those monikers once it's all over. But given the fact that you've won before, does this one make it more special given the fact that you were ranked so much lower and came back to win this entire thing?
Oh yeah, for sure. This one was special, definitely, because I was so far back and I had to do like almost the impossible to make that happen. And thank God I did. I was able to catch up those guys, and it was amazing. It was amazing run to win this buckle, to win this gold buckle again, and it was special for me. I think for the sport, it was something really different that I don't think nobody did it in the past.
Do you think that this sport is continuing to grow and attract and bring in new audiences, especially given the fact that it has a lot of history attached to it, but it feels like it's bringing in new people into the sport?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think every year there's a lot of new fans coming in, because especially after they started this teams deal, like 4 years ago, that brought so many people from other sports, from, sports that they never watched bull riding before. And it's amazing because you can, get those sports together and then get more fans, get more people's interested in our sport.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the team series format because we see this in a lot of big sports, NASCAR, Major League Baseball, a bunch of others, even the NBA with their in-season tournament, trying to find new ways to make the in-season more exciting. Do you think PBR is doing a good job with that with this team series format?
Oh yeah, for sure. I grew up in a sport, like a team sport, so I played soccer for a lot of, long time in my life. And I really love, the team format, the team chemistry, the teammates and all that, the locker room. And when they started these, I'm like, hell yeah, like I love it, and it's going great.
So you only get this for another year, then obviously you have to give it back unless you win it again, which, we're all rooting for you to do.
Yeah.
But are you going to miss this over the next, if we have to get rid of it? Are you taking it on vacations with you? Are you taking it everywhere you go?
Well, this is the buckle from the team season, and then the team takes it for the places that we go. And we were able to stay with this for a year long, unless we win again. So I think it's going to stay at home.
And this is the individual one, right?
No, this is the team one, but
Okay.
a small version of it.
Okay.
So this one I can wear on my belt, and then this one we just take to special places. But I'm sure this is going to stay at home because we're going to win again.
Have you ever been able to put this on your actual belt before? Do you have a belt big enough for it?
I think I'm too small for that one. But
Well, either way, congratulations, Jose, on all of your success, and we're rooting for you to bring this back here in this studio again next year when you're back in New York. Thank
yes,
you.
sir. Thank you.
All right, we have a lot more Front Office Sports today headed your way right after this quick break. All right, let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. While Renee, a 58-year-old Pennsylvania man, is suiting up as a freshman defensive lineman for his Division III college football team. And not to be outdone, Emmy-winning actor Michael Chiklis stars in a new film called The Senior. This tells the story of Mike Flint, who at the age of 59 comes back to play college football after almost 40 years away. Now, Michael joined us here in studio to chat why we're drawn to sports films like this one. Take a look.
It's just an extraordinary story. So at its core, it's a redemption tale, which any great sports film is about someone overcoming adversity. Why do we watch the Olympics every 2 years?
So true.
It's not just for the sport. We love the sport,
right?
Of course, but you also love
the underdog story.
The stories of people,
Yes.
overcoming great adversity for their triumph.
Yep.
And this is that.
Now, of course, you can catch our full interview with Michael Chiklis over on our YouTube channel. We also talked about his love for Boston sports, going to the Super Bowl for the Patriots, going to the World Series for the Red Sox. He even named his dog Tom Brady and even got the approval from Tom Brady in a text message he could do that.
Yeah, well, we love a redemption tale,
Yes.
whether it's watching live like the Eagles' second half comeback Sunday or watching movies like Miracle, Remember the Titans, A League of Their Own. The list goes on and on. So many great sports films that really tell stories that need to be told.
Amen. Well, speaking of good stories, Tim Tebow going to be joining us on Tuesday's edition of the show. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you then.
If you're in the Super Bowl market, if you're in the futures